Yeah.
Good afternoon, everybody. We are very glad to be part of the Geonight event, an international event that is based on geography, but we are here in order to share with you the conclusion and our works about Taste the Place, that is the spring school held in Verbania. We are recording from Verbania, and I'm Stefania CERUTTI from the University of Piemonte Orientale. With me, the Professor Giacomo ZANOLIN of the University of Genova, and also the Professor Valentina ALBANESE of the University of Insubria, and we will give the floor to her in a few minutes. So, as concerned our spring school, we are here in Verbania, as I said before, and we focus our works and our studies and workshop on the relationship, on the deep relationship between the food, the territories, and the tourism, the festival, as lever for local and territorial development. So, just to give you some information, general and from the part of the organization, we are recording the event. So if someone who is following us online would like to ask something to us or to share some in comments, feel free to do it. But remember that everything will be recorded on YouTube. So it's better if you pay attention to this. And at the same time, if the attendees in presence would like to ask something to us, also they can come here and we can give the floor to them. So maybe if you, Giacomo, would like to say something at the beginning of our event.
Yeah, thank you, Stefania. Good morning, everybody. We are here to finish our spring school, as Stefania already said. This is a great moment because we have the opportunity to hear what Valentina and Giulia will say us about their research. The research focused on food, well-being and festival. So it will be, I think, the great opportunity to finish our work in this Geonight, this European event. And we are very happy after those days in which we have worked together. We had the opportunity to meet a lot of experts of many different topics, sociologies, geographies. And so I think we have learned a lot about food, about the relationship between food and place. So I think we can go to the end. And
yeah, maybe we can just remember the stakeholders and our supporters of the initiative for the Geonight and also for the Spring School, because our university, as we said before, also with the University of Oxford Brookes and the University of Hertfordshire. So this is really an international panel, as you can understand. And our initiative has been supported from the Fondazione CERUTTI, also from Arsuni VCO. And this is part also of a big project that is related to the PNRR and that is named NODES. And so we think that through the collaboration and the relationship between different kind of stakeholders, we can have also different kind of point of views and perspective related to food. That is really an important field of research and of discussion. So, as concerned the first part, I give the floor to Professor Giulia Rossetti and then to Professor Valentina ALBANESE, because they can share with us some results and very interesting outputs related to their research on this important theme. So, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me well? Yeah, great. So good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for the introduction. And hello from Oxford. Yes, so we tonight, Valentina and I, and we will explain our initial findings of our research project that we have been conducted also with, as you mentioned, Stefania, with Allan JEPSON from the University of Hertfordshire. And our research project focuses on food festivals, place, and well-being. And for that reason also gave the idea of the spring school. So we are really, really happy that took part, and we are so looking forward also to hear the students' presentations after our initial presentation. Shall we start by presenting our work, our research? So we'll focus on giving you a brief understanding of what we found for our research project in terms of relationships between places and well-being, particularly at food festivals. So as we mentioned before, this comes from our international research project. So we are 3 researchers working together on this project that is still ongoing. So we are still analyzing the data. So it was not finished, but we are happy here to share our initial findings. And of course, ethics and funding come from my institution, Brookes University. So just to introduce a little bit the topic, we are talking about food festivals. So I'm sure you have heard of food festivals, so perhaps you have been to a food festival. Food festivals are type of festivals, so a social gathering of people that meet in a specific place. So it could be a city, a town, a rural village as well. And they share food and drinks, they consume food and drinks. There are different types of activities. So food festivals can really be very different in terms of activities they include. And scholars also claim that food festivals food and wine festivals are part of food and wine tourism, because they generate tourism into the locality, bringing domestic or even international tourists. And while people are there and perhaps tasting some food or sharing recipes or looking at performers cooking, there is what has been called edutainment. So it's an educational as well as an entertaining activity where people perhaps can learn about food, recipes, wine, different drinks, local products as well. So we are starting to see the links between the place, the locality, and food festivals. And for repeat visitors, this is a way also that they could become loyal. And again, food festival can generate repeat visitations to the area, to the town, to the city. And very interesting also, some scholars have started to understand and to analyze personal outcomes generated by food festival participation. As you can see here in the slide, for example, Organ and colleagues in 2015 said that participation of food festivals can change behaviors in tourists and attendees, especially behaviors such as, for instance, how they consume food, how they engage with food, for instance, cooking, or even food purchasing choices. And linked to this concept of behavioral change, there's the concept of well-being. So more recently, there have been an increase in studies in relation to festivals and well-being, including food festivals. And some scholars have found out that food festivals are good moments, occasions to improve people's well-being, especially for local residents' well-being. So as you can see here, so community well-being, or exactly as Tron and colleague said in 2022, so very recent, said that food festival can stimulate local tourism activities and prove advantages to the well-being of local inhabitants. So we are starting to see an interest in understanding exactly the role of food festivals in promoting well-being. But that leads us to the question, what is well-being? How can we define well-being? So just again, to give you a brief overview of the concept of well-being, it's not easy. There's not a uniform definition. So the concept of well-being has been conceptualized and operationalized differently by several scholars, several disciplines as well, from psychology to sociology, to tourism and festival studies. So what you see here, these bullet points are just some models of well-being, just to give you an idea. So for instance, in 1984, we have started to talk about subjective well-being, and then Reeves created the psychological well-being model. And more recently, in 2011, Seligman suggested the PERMA model, meaning that according to Seligman, well-being, it's made of 5 components. So P, positive emotions, engagement, relationships, meaning, and achievement. So as you can see, there's no really uniform agreement on how to define or measure well-being. And there are also calls, a lot of calls for more studies, especially in festivals, and so in the festival context, on, as you can see here, on how happiness or well-being can shape attendees' personal outcomes. And something that we really focused on, especially for our project, that is really understanding the role of place in this well-being promotion, is what is the role of place and space at the same time in this well-being generation? And as you can see here, Alexander and Swan in 2010, they mentioned the importance of consumption situation, which means that the situation, the external background, the festival environment can shape people's behavior and attitudes, as we mentioned before. Later on, even the other scholars said that it does impact, it is important. It plays a very big role, the festival environment, in how people live the experience of festivals and what they gain from their experiences as well. 2 years ago also, I discovered with a previous study that, as you can see here in the slide, in the figure, in the picture, literary festival participation can lead to well-being generation improvement, and there are several elements that can play a role in this generation, well-being generation, and place is one of them. So that is actually why we started really with Valentina and Allan thinking about what is the role of place in this context, in this discussion. So I will leave now the floor to Valentina, who's going to better explain the role of place, what we mean with place or places, and especially the link between place, festivals, and well-being.
You hear me, Giulia? Okay, perfect. First of all, I would like to welcome Allan, who has joined us. Allan, feel free to chime in anytime, and we will certainly leave you the floor for your considerations during the conclusion. And so, to come back to our slides and our presentation, over the last decades, geographic research on identity, so studies on the bridge between people and places, has focused on 3 main issues. The first issue is about the speciality of social practices related to race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, social class, or other social markers, identity politics, mainly in terms of control and resistance strategies. Social identity is defined, we know as geographer, as the product of all the experiences as individual goes through during social interactions to develop a sense of who they believe themselves to be. And, all of these interactions take place in a specific place. I think this is trivial maybe, indeed, but it is something that is always given little thought to, right? But now let us look at the second issue. The second issue is about social conflicts on the identity of specific geographical spaces. We called it identity of the place, as Pasi wrote and Metzger wrote, and all of geographers wrote. In a certain sense, we can read public space as an arena where individuals can claim full use and access to spaces. This hides a reality of constant negotiation, conflict, and maybe sometimes, a lot of times, also surveillance. We could cite here a lot of case studies concerning the management, use, and transgression of public space, but in general, all of them invite reflection on the way in which everyday social interaction is framed and shaped by the physical environment and vice versa. Let's think of the suburbs of Paris, for example, the gentrified cities and the invisible borders between neighborhoods. We can see that in Milan, for example, very well, but it's just one case. We have a lot of cases all around the world. And a third, we come to the last issue that deals with geopolitical aspects of identity, mainly related to the regional and national scale. So we called it the political territorial identity. And in this issue, place and territory have been the conceptual categories most used in studying spatial identities, but many researchers also concerned the landscape and the region. For example, Ramoset et al. Wrote about that. Next slide, please. Okay. Within the existing literature, identity has generally found their roots in social processes. The identity building processes are interpreted as social constructs made possible by the existence of social institutions, which are, as Pasi wrote again, the whole time actively carrying out the production of regional consciousness, or in a spontaneous process through history, ethnicity, civilization, and heritage. So with Vanini, Ilovan, and Pasi, we could say that territorial identity is conceived as a social construct undergoing constant changes, being influenced by a variety of physical and human factors. We can therefore list the main aspects of this link between identity construction and territory in these points below, as you see in this slide. So we have, at first, territorial tangible and quantifiable characteristics, e.g. squares or buildings, and so on. In the second point, we can see representations. Representations could be pictures, but also postcards or storytelling, place telling, and so on. A third, collective opinions and individual place bonds. This is about self-representations. And then we have the last 2 points, shared social practices and local requests and proposals that, as you can imagine, are very much related to the public participation and the individual participation of a city life. Next, please. And to conclude this brief argument, it must be considered that territorial identity is a complex notion involving several dimensions. They are listed below, and we have a sense of belonging and social practices, mainstream rhetoric and contested memory, local politics and territorial branding, narration and representation, discourses and silences, historical roots, and future trends. While you are reading the slide or listening, I would like to leave you with a suggestion. It is something I read by chance a short while ago, and which then led me to reflect at length. The thing is that there are places in your memories without which your life would not be the same. Geographers have paid attention to territorial identity since the birth of the discipline, as it was mainly aimed at studying the specificities of places, landscapes, and regions. And territorial identity has been called by different names: personality, spirit, essence, and has referred to various conceptual categories, e.g., a region, cultural area, place. However, its meaning has always been the same, that which connotes a specific geographical context, distinguishing it from another. Even today, territorial identity refers to a geographical area connoted by cultural, social, or other specificities. In fact, notwithstanding the homologating effect of global processes, speciality continues to be recognized as a key dimension in the formation of social, cultural, and territorial identities. Next, please. Given all these profound social and individual facets of territorial identity, it finally seems obvious to state that a good relationship between place and people determine well-being. Well-being can be interpreted and through places. Julia has already told you about well-being just a while ago, but now by connecting all the pieces of these topics together, we are able to address a more specific topic: how people's well-being can come from a good relationship with the place. Phipps and Slater and Rossetti as well demonstrated that events and festivals deepen the sense of place, and the link between people and place, and events and festival can inform about how people experience places. This encompasses more than physical health, extending to include, for example, emotional, social, spiritual, and embodied notions of well-being. Essentially, the benefits that a place affords one individual may not be experienced by another. Thus, we center the importance of local level understandings and even local definitions of well-being. Next, please. So, with these arguments in our minds, we observed that further studies on festivals are recommended to explore how liminal experience impacts on visitors' quality of life and well-being. In addition, we found calls for more interdisciplinary research on festival studies, and also calls for more research on festival outcomes and well-being in different cultural settings. That's why we worked on this project, as Julia told you in the presentation of this seminar, and now I'll give her the floor again so she can tell you how the project actually unfolded and what the first results we got.
Thank you so much, Valentina. No. Yeah, can you hear me now? Okay, thank you so much, Valentina. So what was our research project? So let's have a quick look at our research design and what we did. And as I said before, let's have an initial look at some findings that we are starting to analyze together, the three of us. So our was an interpretive, inductive, exploratory study of 2 food festivals. One in Italy, Mercatino del Gusto in Maglie in the south of Italy, and one in England, Ludlow Food Festival. So that is why Valentina was also talking about these, the importance, the calls for more studies in different countries as well. So as you can see here in the slide, it was a parallel case study because the festivals were one in August and one in September, but with sequential data collection inside the cases. And there's a graphical representation on the slides, as you can see. So there were 3 phases. It was mixed methods, meaning that led us with 3 data sets. So phase 1 and phase 2, the one that are in green, took place at the same time during the festivals. Meanwhile, the festivals were on. So we were able to collect questionnaires at both festivals in Italy and in England, and they were really, really useful. They were paper-based and self-completion questionnaires, really useful for several reasons. So the first one was that they served kind of as a pilot study for our next data sets, especially the follow-up interviews. They were used also to validate our PERMA model, which was the theory that we used in terms of well-being, the one that I mentioned before. And finally, questionnaires were also useful to recruit interviewees for phase 3. Phase 2, as I said, took place at the same time. So it was during the festival we were collecting questionnaires as well as writing on our journals, researcher journals, with participant observations and field notes. And we have analyzed these data set with Brown and Clark's thematic analysis 2006. Phase 3, instead, took place after the festivals, when the festivals were already over, and they were interviews, semi-structured, in-depth interviews with participants that we recruited at the festivals. So once again, we used thematic analysis as data analysis, and they were really helpful, the 3 data sets, in order to triangulate the results. So this is just to give you a brief overview of the 2 festivals. So these were some of the posters that we used at the festival. So the one that you see on the left, it's in English, and it was one that we used at Ludlow Food Festival, where we explain what we were doing, our research project on exploring the role of place, sense of place, in the process of shaping or not food festival participants' perception of well-being. And the poster on the right is one that we used at the Mercatino del Gusto in Maglie in Italy. So that was just to give you a brief overview of our project. Same as this slide here. So this slide is just to give you an overview of what we lived, what we perceived while we were at the festivals. So these are word clouds that we created with our research journals. Just to explain a little bit what the festivals were about. So as you can see, there are loads of commonalities. So the one that you see on the left was from Maglie, and the one on the right from Ludlow. So again, there was a lot of food, of course, food and drinks, but relaxation was really important. We perceived a lot of relaxation, and that was also evident in our interviews and questionnaires. There were a lot of people, so again, friends, especially we were able to see that people were attending in pairs or in groups. But you also see here, for instance, local products. So, or place, or even on the right, sun and green. So all these elements are indeed related to the concept of place and sense of place, especially including food, with our cultural signifiers of places. So now let's go into the nitty-gritty of our data, and let's start by discussing what our findings, initial findings, are telling us in terms of the perceived well-being outcomes. So we were able to see that our interviewees were able to improve their well-being in several different ways, and very interesting also, several different types of components of well-being. So the first one that you see here is they were talking about happiness, contentment, and relaxation. So it was very much related to emotions, the emotional well-being. So a lot of people were actually validate what we saw, that it was very relaxing atmosphere, was a holiday feeling, people were happy, serene. Somebody mentioned this lightheartedness and serenity, and that was very much related also to the atmosphere. But not only, people were chatting, because as we were saying before, festivals are a gathering of people, so they were not alone in the place. So they were able to socialize with the people that they went with at the festival. But also somebody said that they met they saw old friends or even family members. So they even got closer to these people. And you can read here, somebody also said, I saw them again after the festival because of the festival. So food festivals are indeed occasions to improve social networking, even with people, with new people. So somebody said, I got opportunity to talk to a few new people. And that was not it. We have evidence that participation also improved mental, intellectual well-being, what we mentioned before in terms of edutainment. So they were enjoying themselves, relaxing together. So it was a social opportunity, but also educational. So they, for instance, they learned a lot about food and drinks and recipes, but also about directions of other food events. So it was really 360 education, we can say. So lots of dishes, or somebody even said materials or certain combinations, specifically in terms of, for instance, food and wine. Someone also mentioned the role of physicality and how the festival improved their physical well-being. So before we were saying that at food festivals there were a lot of tasting, so people were eating, were trying food and drinks. So somebody said, well, something remains with you, you necessarily have something left inside you. So it was nourishment for the body, the act of being there. And we also noticed that it was sunny during the day, for instance, in Lutlau, or it was very fresh during the evening, night in Maglie. So it was the entire was affected by participation. People were walking, so they got the steps in as well. So it was really refreshing for the body. And finally, the last thing we noticed is that for some, it was almost like a spiritual experience that impacted on their spiritual well-being. So in England, for instance, a lot of people mentioned the importance of the castle So here again, we are seeing the heritage, the place. So because the festival was within the castle walls, everything was so, they find it spiritual. So it was quite a spiritual place, they said, a kind of a spiritual essence because of this castle, this heritage. While in Italy, a lot of people appreciated and highlighted the importance of the atmosphere, how the festival was set up. So because it was during the evening, nighttime, there were these soft lights that created a really nice, almost spiritual atmosphere. Or even somebody said how the tables were set. For example, in some indoor events like Cena in Villa, dinner in the villa, or Gusto Lab, Taste Lab. So as you can see, loads of people actually perceived a well-being improvement. And our question is, so we are starting to see the role of place in these well-being generations, such as, for instance, the castle, the sun. But we wanted to understand this a little bit further. So before looking at how exactly the role of place shape this well-being generation and promotion, it's important to also look at the places. So just bear in mind that there is a stratification of places for both case studies. So for example, Mercatino del Gusto in Italy, it's located in Maglie, which is, again, it's a village, it's a small town in the region of Puglia in South Italy, but is also within an area, specific area of Puglia, which is called Salento, and of course is in Italy. While Ludlow is based in Ludlow, and which is in the UK, which is in England, and which is also in Shropshire, which is next to Wales at the same time, Ludlow. So there's influence of Welsh culture, and we actually saw some vendors, some products from Welsh cuisine. So just bear in mind this stratification of places. Meanwhile, we are going to look at our findings in the next slide. So this slide is quite rich, but just to give you an idea of how place promoted well-being at our festivals. So let's start from the top. So we did mention the castle, right? So tangible heritage was really, really important for participants in how they lived experience and what they gained from it in terms of well-being and happiness. So we saw again before the importance of the castle and the castle walls for Ludlow because of this spiritual atmosphere. Somebody also said that Ludlow is very nice and compact. So the fact that it was within the castle, it allowed them, for instance, to walk freely, and it was very special. Same in Maglie, we noticed the importance of the Lecce stone, which is a particular white stone that we recognize it's very relaxing. It makes a very relaxing atmosphere. And somebody even said walking there in Maglie was pleasant. So again, the physical, tangible heritage of the place, of the two towns, really played a role in how they people improve their well-being. But not only, also intangible heritage was really important, as you can see here. We just mentioned two now, food and music. So we said food are cultural signifiers of place, and so people recognize that food festivals are occasions to taste local products, to get to know local vendors and companies and sellers, and so that would link to physical well-being, but also educational, mental well-being. This is a note from our participant observation in Maglie. We heard local music like pizzica, as well as local food like the bombette. So it was an occasion to really try to get to know the local food. and local drinks. There's another element of place, which was the availability of spaces after COVID. Now, here we're talking more about spaces than places, and especially in relation to COVID, which was really important, especially nowadays, and how festivals can be organized and managed. So as you can see here, there are two quotes from our interviewees, and they said that they felt more comfortable, confident at the festivals because they were outdoor, and yes, there were people, but it was not a big crowd, they said. So it's relatively busy, they said, so they felt confident. So that was also another way of looking at how spaces were managed, were set up by the festival organizations, which allowed people to feel good, basically. What you see at the bottom left, stories and traditions, this is very much linked to intangible heritage, and is also linked what Valentina said before in terms of storytelling that she mentioned. Storytelling was really, really important, and was again linked to intellectual, mental well-being, and the concept of education and entertainment, so edutainment. So for instance, this is a note from our participant observation in Lutlau. We saw that there was a cider press machine in a corner, and the people were watching the performer using the cider press machine, and they were kind of learning, they were chatting, they were discussing, even with the performer, they were asking questions. So again, they engage with intangible heritage, stories, traditions that were shared, and people were learning about place as well in this way. That was just an example. There were so many more. The final one is weather and outdoor that we mentioned before as well. So the importance of the festivals being outdoor, and as well as the role of the weather, was also important and did shape how people were living the experience and what they gained from it. So we were saying that in Maglie, since it was during the summer, in the evening, it was really fresh, so people were feeling good, while in Lutlau it was sunny, and somebody said sun always lifts the mood. So again, the sun linked to happiness and well-being. In England, somebody else mentioned that going up to the tower of the castle walls and looking outside the castle walls, they were able to see these green spaces and the river. So they were seeing this kind of nature environment, and that helped them to feel better. And as you can see here in the quote, they were lovely kind of sceneries. I think definitely it has good impact on my well-being. So this is just, again, to give you a brief overview of our initial findings on how place and space can promote well-being at food festivals. So to conclude, just to link our findings to what we covered before in terms of theory, we can say that attendees, food festival attendees, there is reason to believe that food festival attendees can improve their well-being in different ways, at different times, and especially different components of well-being. We mentioned some, for instance, emotional, mental, social, spiritual, physical. And place is really important, and it does play a critical role in fostering well-being at food festivals. Place, space, and sense of place, and especially heritage. So Valentina was really talking a lot about territorial identity, the importance of territorial identities linked to entertainment, storytelling. So heritage and local history is really important, including especially at food festivals. And at the beginning, we were talking about the link between food festivals and tourism. So festivals can be, food festivals can be for repeat visitors almost like rituals, and they can become loyal to the place, so they can go back to the festivals, back to that town, to that city. So there is a generation in this way of also collective and individual place attachments, place bonds. There is kind of a link to also sense of belonging that Valentina was mentioning before. Our final thought, which is actually kind of like a question, there could be possibly a debate as well. So, as you remember, a lot of our data was they really focus on the physicality of the experience, because people were there, they could see the sun, they could walk, so have their steps, they could eat or drink, they were, it was really physical, the experience, and it was really, really important, and as well in terms of how they perceive their well-being outcomes, and how they engaged with the place. So what about hybrid or virtual food festivals? Because nowadays we have seen an increase of hybrid and virtual festivals in general after the pandemic. So it's just an open question, and it's really interesting to see the role of the bodies and the body performances at food festivals. So I will leave you with this final question. And not sure if Allan, would you like to add anything, or Valentina?
I can do. Yeah. I mean, you've done a fantastic presentation. I mean, just to sort of note on well-being, really, that definitions of well-being are so complex, they're so fragmented. Well-being is holistic, it's subjective, it's intrinsic, and it's extrinsically shaped by psychology, sociology, and physiology, making it a really complex and problematic thing to research. So that's just something because what we're interested in ourselves are these complex interactions. Food festivals are like a recipe, really, because they have so many complexities, so many things going on. And it's about really us investigating all of these complexities to see what's important, and then to understand somebody's personal recipe and how that impacts upon their well-being. So that's realistically what we've been trying to do with this research. I mean, obviously, future research, if people want to take this further, would be to test the importance of our findings across, different cultural contexts and across different countries, to take it one step further. I mean, just thinking really about this idea of sharing as well. Shared social practices has been a massively underestimated area of research. People have just largely ignored it, and that's a real shame. Potentially, researchers have ignored it because of the complexities around it. But these shared social practices, I certainly believe, are the sort of really a foundational building block for things like memories, and this can enhance our well-being as well. And obviously Valentina's coming across this from a geospatial approach, and how space is themed and used and enjoyed in different places. So just to think about the practical implications of our research, we may even be able to get to a stage where we can recommend how spaces are used, and the kind of, as I was saying, those kind of ingredients that go into the recipe of well-being, to understand those and the importance of that, and then how we can foster well-being, certainly physiologically into the future, to make us more healthy people. So yeah, it's been really, really interesting. I think the case studies that we used for this research have been really eye-opening, certainly to me anyway. Yeah, good. I think, I could go on, but I'm sure maybe there's questions and things. So maybe we sort of open up that debate now and see how we get on.
So much for this interesting speech and different kind of perspective, because we know that the food is at the heart of your research, but you spoke about and you told about a lot of experiences of different kind of methods and tools, also passing through the two case studies, very, very interesting for us and also for our students. So I think can move to the second part of our event, because we would like to share with our students who follow the spring school.
Can we just ask if someone has a question? Yes. Maybe we can open a brief debate.
Yeah.
If you have some question, you can ask.
Of course.
Yeah, maybe if the students want to want to think about some questions, maybe I can ask you if you can share with us, maybe if you eventually lived critical moments during your research, if you when you were in the field work during the festival, meeting people. So if you can share with us maybe some critical aspects of your research. So if you want to share with us.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to say something. Or maybe I just can share with you that what I found very difficult was, above all, to convince people to stay with us, to spend some time with the questionnaires while they were there mainly to eat, hang out, and enjoy the evening. And it was difficult to have their availability. And it helped to have many elements that made our role more formal, e.g. an info point, and also T-shirts with the festival logo in Maglia, for example, or brochure project in Italy also, and this helped. Then once they were engaged, once they decided to stay with us, they would stay with an happy mood. It was a nice, relaxed moment, and they also spent a lot of time with us. But the first stopping them was difficult for me. Yes.
Because they was
Yes,
too much.
they were there
Because
to
they were
enjoy.
relaxed.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe if there are no more questions, maybe we can go to the.
In both contexts, in Italy also in India?
She's asking if in both contexts we have the same difficulties that I mentioned now, but I wasn't in Ludlow, so I can answer just for Italy.
I think there's a period of negotiating trust. I don't know if you can hear me. You can hear me. I think that there's always like a period of negotiating trust between researcher and between participant. That's always going to be problematic. And it's a bit awkward because we have to get across what we're doing and why it's important. But I hope with this research that it will benefit everybody. You know, it will be of benefit to the festivals as well in terms of how they plan for the future, and then how they can start to track people's well-being, and and then maybe they can demonstrate how they're enhancing people's well-being, going forward. So
absolutely. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
absolutely. I do echo what Allan is saying. Our research it does focus on, of course, extending the current academic debate, but at the same time, we really would like to suggest some practical implications for the festivals, for the society as a whole. So yes, we hope this study is going to be really useful for festival organizations, other food festivals as well. Why not in other different countries?
So much.
Maybe we can.
Okay. Yeah, we can move on.
Yes, we can move on.
So I can invite our students, because we would like to share with you some comments or feedbacks about this experience. You just talk about sharing the time. So I think it's a great experience within the spring school, Yeah, because different moments, from lecture to excursion. So we are very curious,
Yes.
So we give the floor. We
We give
leave
the
you with.
and we give the chairs. Also.
Yes.
Oh, Valentina, stay.
Io so, ok.
Please sit here. You can sit here. But you're free. You can sit here. Okay.
Good evening. My name is Mari Bambara from the University of Insubria in Como, and I am in my first year master degree in hospitality for sustainable tourism development. And me and my colleagues would like to express our gratitude to all those who made this experience possible. And firstly, we would like to thank the mayor and all the amazing professors that shared their knowledge with us. It is an honor for us to be part of the Spring School of 2023. We would like to express our gratitude also to the school organizers and that share with us the stunning location, because Verbania and these surrounding areas were most beautiful places for us. So as student of sustainable tourism development, we gain new perspective on the world of tourism, strong connection to food and foodscapes through their presentations. In particular, we were fascinated by Professor Abdesamad El-Jauzi's presentation on the art of diplomacy, using food as a tool for cooperation between states, which nowadays is for sure an important element, considering the fact that thanks to globalization, we are all more connected. And also, we would like to thank Carlo Genova, that taught us a new approach to mapping territories and finding new strategies to analyze them. And thanks to him, we also learn about batch geo, that will be a useful tool for our master degree thesis. And this experience, in addition of enriching us, will surely be a great start for our final project. So now I leave the floor to my colleague.
Good evening, I'm Sara Personè, and I'm attending the same master degree of my colleagues. We would like to thank Professor Bettinati, because during his lecture, we learned that typical products are really closely and linked to the territory and can strongly modify their territories. So this made us notice how it's really important to understand the connection between territories and food, and tourism and foodscapes. So it's really important also to preserving the authenticity of and also the authenticity of places. We attend the class, the lectures in such stunning place that is the Villa San Remigio, and made us understand more how we can use the heritage in different ways and preserving it. So coming from studies in tourism, we discovered new points of view thanks to your lectures. So thank you very much. And we understand that the future is in the new generation. So it's in the hands of new generation, and so it's up to us to develop a sustainable tourism, develop a sustainable tourism strictly connected to territories and foodscapes.
Good evening, everyone. I am Carlotta La Monaco, and I attended the spring school too. And in particular, for my two colleagues, Martina, Rebecca, and I, it has been a very educational experience. Even if we came from very different theoretical backgrounds. Especially the aspect that we found very interesting was knowing how to connect aspects of theoretical frameworks and methodological approaches, declining them with a very concrete practical aspects. Indeed, what we found very interesting were the lectures about typicity and typical foods, described through a critical approach, and how a typical product reflects the culture of a territory and its people. And we observed this in a very concrete way today, visiting the Institute Fobelli of Crodo, which is a very particular school because it is a slow food institute community, and because of the knowledges about the agriculture that this school provides to its students. And moreover, this school is also a local producer of cheese, wine, beers, honey, and jams. So in conclusion, we want to thank all the staffs at our universities, which give us these beautiful opportunities. And so thank you and good evening.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think that we taste the place with your comments, really, because we have a lot of suggestions. You know, it was the first edition, and we try to share together this new experience. So we would like to thank you for this.
You have been very nice with us.
Yeah, it was a really great group.
Yeah.
Also in presence and with our colleagues from the UK. So I think that it's very important for us because we would like to, we would like to try to continue this experience maybe next year during another spring school or another edition dedicated to the food. Yeah. We have now the certificate of attendance, and we can conclude. We can deliver then.
Maybe you can come here.
Yes.
Okay, so Martina Arcadu.
Okay. You can go there.
You can come here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
you
you
very much.
Perfect.
Okay, sorry, you can do that.
Yeah.
Nogbo Mari Bambara. Sorry.
It's a bit difficult.
Sorry.
Mari.
Okay.
Thank you, Mari.
It's easy.
Mari Bambara.
Stefania Benetti. Thank you, Stefania. Alessandro Cataletto.
Oh no, vai tu, Davide.
Maybe Alessandro is coming because.
Vai tu, Davide.
No, it's slow. You can call the other and
You can come here.
Yeah, very slow. Slow tourism.
Slow.
Yeah.
Don't worry. Okay, thank you, Alessandro. Angelo Denuzzo is not still here.
Yeah.
Martina Denti. Angelo is okay. Thank you, Angelo. Martina Denti. Thank you, Martina. Rebecca Guidetti. So thank you, Rebecca. Carlotta Lo Monaco. Thank you, Carlotta.
Thank you very much.
Ilaria Maiocchi. Thank you, Ilaria. Valeria Parravicini. Thank you, Valeria. And Giulia Perego.
Thank you.
Thank you, Giulia. Davide Perna. Thank you, Davide. And Sara Personet. Yeah, she's coming.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sara. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Everybody,
Okay.
maybe we can finish.
Yeah, so on behalf of the scientific committee, I think we can thank you that follow us from here in presence, also online.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Now we have a very little request. If you can show us Allan and Giulia, please, in the video. We would like to have a picture of all of us.
Because it's, yeah.
And then also with you, with the students. Are you going to do the picture? Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
One
thank
is
you.
done. And with all of you, please come
Please
here.
come here.
With the students.
With the certificate.
With your diploma.
Come with the certificate.
Yeah, with your certificate. But we have to.
Close and close.
Yeah.
Poverino.
Okay.
Oh, no,
They will be back.
Oh, okay.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe it's just technical issue.
Yeah, it looks that way. Are you all right? Sorry, I was
Share
late.
with you,
Yeah,
Giulia and Allan,
of course.
this picture.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
See you
everybody.
next year.
Bye
We
bye,
hope.
guys.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Have a good night. Yeah.
No.
Thank you.